San Francisco, California, the Golden City. Now, most people, when they hear that name, they may think of different attractions it has to offer, like the spectacular view of the Golden Gate Bridge, where the waterline and sunset meet so beautifully. Some might even think about the spooky but intriguing tours of Alcatraz Island, where you can tour the inside of the prison and see what it was like for prisoners during this era. Some might even think about the wonderful little part of San Francisco that is called Chinatown, where a lot of small-owned businesses operate and share the Chinese culture. Now yes, San Francisco can be very touristic and have natural beauty, but this time I will cover the opposite, something very problematic and real. I will cover racism in the county of San Francisco, and specifically Asian discrimination and hate in this specific area of California, with the help of Stop APPI Hate, Asian Americans Advancing Justice, Asian American Studies Association, NBC Asian America, and political leader Grace Meng, as well as Ibram X. Kendi. All of these organizations and people, some nonprofit, help combat and get rid of Asian American racism and discrimination. These organizations also help report hate crimes committed against Asians. Altogether, they help and want to do nothing but aid Asians who are discriminated against by protesting, trying to pass laws and bills, informing the public about hate crimes against Asians, or even just keeping track of the records of crimes reported. These are just a couple of the ways Asian hate is being dealt with. Grace Meng's bill proposal can create a sense of security for Asian Americans in San Francisco, as well as Asian Americans all over the United States. This is because she explains how a bill helping fight Asian hate is almost being passed. A bill that empowers the Justice Department to expedite review of hate crimes against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders on a federal, state, and local level. So in general, this bill will help keep track of hate crimes committed against Asians and punish others who commit them. So all in all, this bill is against Asian discrimination and will help rather than do more damage to the victims who face racism because of their Asian ethnicity. Now, having a strict set of laws and discriminating others for their race could potentially lower the volume of discrimination Asians face. However, who is going to fight to pass a bill like that? Well, many people may be fighting for stricter laws, but one person in particular is political leader Grace Meng. Grace Meng serves as the first vice chair of the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus. The bill she is fighting to pass empowers the Justice Department to expedite review of hate crimes against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders on a federal, state, and local level. It also gives law enforcement, state or locally, the tools to receive reports of hate crimes online and expand their cultural and linguistic competency in responding to these hate crimes. In many ways, this bill is a corrective attempt to more than a year of Donald Trump's China virus and Kung Flu rhetoric, where he bashed Chinese people and Asians all over the world for allegedly starting the whole COVID-19 pandemic. These false accusations just cause fake narratives and create a wide open door for mindless people to feel the need to judge and discriminate. That open door also makes others feel like it's okay to send hate to any Asian group or community. These acts sadly still impact the lives of millions of Asians, but in particular, San Francisco is one of the main targets since it is predominantly populated with Asian Americans. Luckily, Grace Meng is fighting to pass this bill, which will aid thousands affected by Asian hate in San Francisco, California. Now, as racism is a national problem, there are many people trying to fight it. One of those examples is Ibram X. Kendi. His anti-racist practices can help lower Asian American racism in San Francisco, as well as every region that experiences this kind of discrimination towards Asians. Asians are not responsible for any diseases because it is simply out of their control. They got plenty of hate because of social media influence, saying China caused everything. However, this is not the case. It is a made-up lie. In these images I am showing you, you can see Asian communities fighting for change, fighting for justice, fighting for equality, fighting for each other and their communities that they have built over time. Time for facts, not fear, one of the signs says, which basically sums up that you should not be scared. They do not carry diseases. They are normal people that should not be viewed any other way. Those are the facts, people. This section also supports my claim because it states how racism can drop based on anti-racist practices we all can do, which ties into my thesis because anti-racism is against Asian hate, as well as any other hate against all races. According to Ibram X. Kendi's, his piece called How to Be an Anti-Racist, he exclaims how a person is either racist or anti-racist. There is no in between. This ties into my topic because if more people become anti-racist rather than being racist, obviously hate crimes would drop significantly. However, it takes a lot more than just flipping a switch for some people. This is because this type of discriminatory behavior is deeply rooted in our system, practically embedded. You also need to know how to practice self-directory as well as controlling your own actions. Some examples of this practice are not judging others, living happily, and having self-control. If these ideas were spread by big role models like the president, big celebrities, or even athletes, there would be a drop in racism against Asians and all other races who suffer from discrimination. Everyone would be treated more equally, and less discrimination will be reported, as well as no false accusations. For example, how one race started a whole pandemic, like the whole COVID-19 scandal. Anyone and anything can spread sickness. It is all up to the vulnerability of a person and the vulnerability of their own immune system. Grace Meng's bill proposal can create a sense of security for Asian Americans in San Francisco as well as all over the United States. Once again, bills and laws against racial discrimination would likely lower the volume of race crimes against Asians. This section supports the thesis because it shows how Asians faced racism in San Francisco, California. This is because of the 500% increase in incidents reported to the San Francisco APPI. With that much of an increase, you cannot tell me the city was not one of the main target cities to receive unnecessary hate just because of their demographic. They found a new home in San Francisco Chinatown as the only place of safety against that racism, Jung said. But during the COVID-19 pandemic, that safe haven became a target of anti-Asian racism. This was a report from Russell Jiang, a resident of San Francisco County, explaining hate their grandparents received during the peak COVID era. The San Francisco APPI also reported more than 60 cases of hate crimes in 2021. The others, which were not reported, are unknown. However, this was around a 500% increase compared to the year prior, which was only 9 incidents reported in 2020, which means San Francisco was definitely a target group that received a lot of racism and discrimination because of their demographics. Ibram X. Kendi's anti-racist practices can lower Asian American racism in San Francisco, as well as every region that experiences this kind of discrimination towards Asians by understanding self-control. Research shows that sickness has always been something Asians have been accused of, and being filthy, quote-unquote, all because they were forced into overcrowded confinements that were unsanitary. This section supports my claim because it connects racism tracing back from the 19th century when Asians first came to San Francisco in search of gold. They were demonized, just like they were demonized for starting a pandemic, quote-unquote. Chinese were vilified and demonized in the U.S., accused of eating vermin, or rats, and engaging in pagan religious practices. Generally, they were associated with filth and disease, often because they were forced to live in overcrowded quarters, which is what became Chinatown's industrial poor neighborhoods, where disease ran rampant and proper hygiene was unobtainable. These different factors prove how Asians do not cause sicknesses, rather, it's just a made-up stereotype made to discriminate against them as a whole. Instead, they are forced into unsanitary living conditions, pretty much helpless to sickness. Grace Meng, Ibram X. Kendi, Stop APPI Hate, and many more important figures in anti-racism all share the same goal in the end: to put an end to racial discrimination. more specifically, Asian American violence, racism, and discrimination, traces back in time to the 19th century, as well as to this day. Asians still suffer from discrimination about their appearance, their living conditions, and how quote-unquote dirty they are. However, Grace Meng is advocating laws and bills in order to combat anti-Asian discrimination. Within these laws, their purpose is to empower the Justice Department to expedite review of hate crimes against Asian Americans, as well as Pacific Islanders on a federal, state, and local level. It also gives law enforcement, state or locally, the tools to receive reports of hate crimes online and expand their cultural and linguistic competency in responding to these hate crimes. Ibram X. Kendi also is actively fighting on behalf of Asians and every race that suffers discrimination. His mission is to make everyone an anti-racist, which means you do not see color, you only see a person with soul. Stop APPI Hate is a major factor as well. They cover Asian hate incidents and report them, so people can see Asian hate is still an issue. However, change is now, change is tomorrow. No matter the outcomes and hardships, these individuals and organizations will fight for what is right, and that is equality and peace for all, Asians across the world, as well as equality for everyone else.